Our Ask the Mayor program is on the air with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. And Bob, are you surviving breathing in all this smoke? Or what? It was pretty hazy yesterday. And
it was.
And what a day for league golf! You guys were looking through the fog trying to hit balls, weren't you?
We were, And by the way, good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
Yes, and as anybody that gets a little bit older knows, it gets a little harder to see the golf ball down. And so last night it was like, luckily I was playing with two great young guys, and they were like taking care of the old guys.
They were hitting, and you just kind of lost sight of it, didn't you?
Yeah, got up there, got a long ways, and you just knew that there is equity in age.
Yeah, it's hopefully things are kind of clearing out for us, and it looks to be a nice weekend. And I know you're a big Chiefs fan. Your team's playing tonight. You're ready to go, I'll imagine.
That's exactly right. Yeah. They play Detroit tonight, and in the season opener, so that should be fun.
Okay. Hopefully the injuries will solve themselves and the contract negotiations will solve themselves.
I know. I hear you.
Seems to be the big thing right now. Well, Tuesday night, I was going to say Monday night, but you moved the council meeting to Tuesday due to the Labor Day holiday period. And important thing about Tuesday night's meeting was budget approval, the new biennium budget for the city, Board of Public Works, also the Beatrice Area Solid Waste Agency operation, and just overall the pieces that were put together. It's a big undertaking for city staff and department heads to do this. How did it come out, do you think?
I think it's a very responsible budget. Mm-hmm. I think some of the things to back up just a little bit. Hannah Bell did a wonderful job. Tobias did a wonderful job, and the department heads did a wonderful job, because the challenge was this year, I think Hannah and Tobias said, hey, department heads, can you maybe project out 8 years for your capital projects? Because, this is every 2-year budget. But when you think about the future, there are other projects that have to get done. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to balance how do you, be fiscally responsible and yet still do the things the city needs to do and wants to do for the amenities that we have. It could be trails, it could be the pool, it could be equipment, mm-hmm. Because equipment wears out. It comes a point in time when your equipment is completely depreciated out and mechanics are breaking down, and it costs you more to repair than to fix. And so the department heads did a great job of laying out 8 years worth of capital projects. Now, when you lay out projects for 8 years, you do know that it's probably a little more solid plan for the 2 to 4 year, and mm-hmm. some things will change in the 4 to 8 year, but at least you've got a roadmap. And I hats off to all those folks. They did a great job. And I think one of the other things that I saw, after being on city council for 8 years and now being my 9th year there, we always have a special work session, which we had on August 28th to go through the budget for everybody in the council. I also saw a number of councilmen take more interest than ever and ask some really pretty good hard questions to the department heads and to Tobias and to Hannah. And so it was, at least I felt really good about how serious this council has taken the steps of looking at the 2-year budget as well as that 8-year project.
Looking out that far, it's almost like the philosophy with the 1 and 6 year road plans, where you look at the first year as being the immediate needs, and then you kind of lump everything out there. Of course, things can change, right. But the same philosophy in a way, doing that.
Right, yeah. Right. And again, we've we lowered our tax levy a little bit, but on the other side of the coin, valuations went up. Mm-hmm. And we also know that from public safety, we wanted to make sure that we kept a strong law enforcement, group with the police, and so we voted to give them a raise that was due to recruit. And so when you see the budget and you see a little bit of an increase of tax that comes to the city, it really is for public safety. Mm-hmm. And so I think we feel really good about that, because that's the best place that we can be to keep the community safe and still give the community all the amenities and assets that we have.
It does, and it doesn't surprise me, but still does a little bit. When you get around budget time, you're talking about the figures that cities have for their budgets, cities, counties, right. Schools. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars to fund operations and departments, but you still see very little public input on budget matters, and yet you'll see a lot of public input on what might be comparatively a minor disagreement or something like that. It always kind of surprises me.
It surprised me too. I mean, I look at the number of things that we've had a lot of input on, even since, December, and some of the smaller, it's the small things that get
fireworks.
The fireworks was one, UTVs was another, and at the end of the day, I think they've integrated very well into the community. But the budget is one of those things that is just, first of all, it's big. It takes some time. And I think the hard part is, and we had it at the college too, you've kind of got two budgets. You've got a general budget, which is general funds, which is what the taxpayer helps support. And then you have the Board of Public Works, which is a revenue-driven budget, and that is not used for taxpayer money. So, you have those two pieces that you have to juggle and make a good conscientious budget for the entire city.
The landfill budget, big difference between spending in the first year and the second year. And the second year is the fact that you're on the verge of putting in a new landfill south of the highway spur, south of the current facility. But that's going to cash out all right in terms of revenue, but you'll need, a bond issue to help do those things?
That's correct, and that's what they call, a revenue bond. And so a revenue bond is paid off by the fees that you collect at the new landfill. And so it's not tax driven, it's revenue driven. So the landfill will bring in enough revenue to cover for the new landfill that we're going to start, I believe, in 2025. We'll start the design process, in 24, and we'll probably see some groundbreak for that new landfill. There's been some questions about the landfill. Do you build a new landfill? Do you do a transfer station? I think a few years ago we had that discussion at the city council. And that
on more than one occasion, I think.
On more than one occasion, and you had a number of difference of opinions. But at the end of the day, we have the land, and we have a number of users that are coming in, not only from Gage County, but around the other area that are paying their fair share. So it made sense to build a landfill. And then it also gives you control of your destiny for 60 years. And so you can continue to, work with that landfill and try to keep the fees at a reasonable rate rather than being locked into one or two big companies that do that, that have like a big landfill up in Milford, for instance, And so I think building that landfill will be a really good choice for today and for tomorrow.
And when you went into the garbage hauling business with Mars, Midwest Area Refuse Solutions, I think at first there was maybe the perception that, that's just going to be for Beatrice, but now you look at picking up areas around Hickman, Firth, all the way over to Western, that area, and that customer base has expanded over time.
That is correct. And at the end of the day, again, everything is revenue driven. And so part of your garbage fee is charged, that you are charged, is paid from Mars to the landfill. And so that money also is helping build that landfill. And again, it helps us, if you look at most communities, I think you'll find that our garbage rate is pretty reasonable compared to particularly the bigger cities.
And you do what, twice a week?
We do once a week.
Once
now.
a week, that's right.
Yeah, we do once a week.
Once a week.
Unless you have grass pickup from April to November, then it's another. That's another trip through. But
well, once the new facility is built, and I don't remember the lifespan, but you won't have to deal with it for a while, the way it sounds, because I think what were you talking, 50, 60 years?
It should last 60 years.
60 years.
And, I don't think I'll be sitting in this chair in 60 years.
I don't think I will be either. Somebody else will be asking somebody else about this at that time. So that's what I think due to be finished, what was it, summer of 25 or so?
Summer
roughly?
Or fall of 25.
Okay.
We're not walking a tightrope, but we certainly are going to be timed out about right when one landfill is full and the new one is open.
Okay. Before we take a break, maybe a few questions about a suggestion from one of the council members Monday night about the infrastructure fee or surcharge, as it was called in some cases, as far as how you fund projects, capital projects, and water, sewer, things like that. Councilman Gary Barnard said, given inflation and that adds up each year, things cost more every year. This last year we saw a big jump in inflation, which has tamed a little bit, but it's still up there higher than normal. And he is suggesting, do you start to move that fee up a little bit just to to make sure you can get things done?
Yeah, and just to start off with, I think Gary really has taken a hard look at that, and I think it is something we should look at. Mm-hmm. When you talk about the infrastructure fees, the best example I can use is the wastewater and the wastewater treatment plant. Mm-hmm. Because of the infrastructure that we have on our wastewater, we've been able to do a number of projects that allowed us to be, because with wastewater, your plant has to be certified every 5 years. Mm-hmm. To make sure that you clean it and the water you're putting back into the ground is pure. And at the end of the day, that whole mechanism is changing. And with the infrastructure, we've been able to replace a number of high-priced pieces that have extended the life of our water treatment plant. Mm-hmm. And we're, again, hats off to the water treatment plant. We have a brand new 5-year certificate. And so some of the major expenses that we might have had to incur, we won't have to. And so that infrastructure fee helps build this pool of money to do capital projects for whatever department it is. Mm-hmm. And, Gary's suggestion would be adding $1 to that infrastructure fee for what? Water, sanitation, and electric. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the end of the day, you're looking at what, $3 for residential. You're looking at $36 in a year. But at the end of the day, when you look at collectively, I think it could bring in. I think Tobias said somewhere between $72,000 or $80,000 per water, mm-hmm. sanitation, electricity. And so I think it's something you have to look at, because does that just give us another $72,000 that we can put in to each one of those areas to improve the capital structure that would maybe save us in 3 years not having to get a bond or to raise rates because we have to have a major improvement. Mm-hmm.
And you haven't, there have been some small rate increases, water and sewer, but you haven't raised one on the electric since, 2015 or 17, somewhere in there?
It's 2015, and we take a close look at that. One of the smarter moves with the electric company that I have to say has been really, really good is when our move away from NPPD and where we buy and sell our own power. That has helped immensely. The electric department is also your most expensive department. When you look at your trucks, you look at your poles, you look at your transformers, you look at your power plants that you have. Mm-hmm. Certainly, it has the highest reserve, but it also has the highest risk. Mm-hmm. And so we have a good reserve balance there, and we look at that reserve balance. And if we feel like we've got a good reserve balance, we don't feel like we need to raise the rate because we're in a good spot. And that just saves all of us, the consumer, some money.
So the Board of Public Works have basically discussed this on the surcharge or on the infrastructure fee, and then make some recommendation?
They will. I think the department heads will go back and they'll take a look at their cash reserves. They'll take a look at their capital projects. They'll take a look at the idea and give it some serious consideration. And then they'll bring it back to the Board of Public Works directors or board, mm-hmm. And have a discussion there. And then they'll either forward it to the city council or not.
All right. Mayor Bob Morgan with us today on Ask the Mayor. We'll have more coming up here in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. Moving on to some other topics. Donation of property where there was a demolition project in downtown Beatrice, 413 Court, in the past months. There was some cost incurred in that, and that cost was not small for the city.
No.
What about recovering that yet? Is that still a possibility now that you actually have the property, or you will have the property in your hands?
Well, yeah. We have the property in our hands, and then we have to determine what we want to do with it, or if there's a business that wants to set up something there, we could do that. Mm-hmm. The land that we have is pretty narrow, when you look at it, but at least allow us to go in now and finish off that project because, we haven't been able to do anything because we didn't own the land, and we can at least, fill it in and get a green space at least. It's one of those unfortunate things where the building was so dilapidated it needed to be torn down. The owner, probably didn't have the funds to tear it down, and if you don't have the funds to tear it down, it's pretty hard to, we'll go back and see what we can do to try to recoup some of that cost. But at the end of the day, if the money's not there, the money's not there.
You just hope that you don't have to face another one of these, because you've had two of them in the same block, and they've been both pretty expensive projects to deal with.
Well, that's very, very true. I mean, that's the hard part. When you have a downtown as old as ours is, you have to look at the safety, you have to look at the buildings. And so I think for the most part, other than a couple of buildings, I think we're in really pretty good shape.
Yeah. Plus, there's the safety of the adjoining buildings, too,
That's right.
and everything, because they're operating businesses, and they have concerns, too. So,
Yep.
Any update on the downtown water main project? Of course, the Court Street's closed off. I think people are getting kind of accustomed to it. I mean, I haven't really heard any major, well, there's always somebody complaining about something or another, but I think by and large people have dealt with it pretty well.
I think people have dealt with it very, very well. It's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people understand that we got to get this project done. One of the interesting things that I didn't know is when you do a project like this, you actually hire, again, another consulting firm, but Olson Associates, an engineering firm, actually puts together the traffic plan and the traffic flow. And it's designed for basically two things, the safety of the workers and the public, and number two, how do you get the project done the quickest way. And so that's why you see Court Street closed from, 3rd to, 7th or whatever it is, because, we're trying to protect the traffic flow. We're trying to protect the workers that are working on the taps. We're trying to get the project done, because we certainly want to get it done by, hopefully 6 weeks from now, the end of September, first part of October. We want to try to get that, sure that we get the downtown open for Christmas, because that's a big retail part. And so we took the advice of Olson's on how to reroute traffic. I think it works pretty well. Even myself, I have to think a little bit, because I'm used to going down to the city hall for meetings, and so I found myself yesterday in a traffic pattern that wasn't going to get me there as quickly as I thought. So I had to rethink about how do I do this. But at the end of the day, I also know that 100, 120-year-old water lines, you don't want those to all of a sudden start breaking all through the winter and having things shut down for quite some time to get it fixed.
I think having the cross route on 5th Street has helped, too,
Yes.
going through there. At least, you still have the highway, of course, 77 you can go to, but just having that about midway through the project, I think, has helped out.
5th and 3rd.
Yeah.
You can get through there. Yeah. And 4th, the question was, why is that closed? But I think there's going to be some construction things that happen there in the roadway to get down to the lines. And so, unfortunately, that's why that street has been blocked off.
And you can still park only a third of a block, half block
Yes.
away to get to your favorite business, so it's not that...
Correct.
It's not a hike. It's just a short walk.
Michael with Main Street and Amanda, and our social media expert, had done a pretty good job of trying to at least keep everybody informed.
Yeah. Yeah, public parking lots available, so that's
Absolutely.
nice. And
we have a lot of opportunities, but I'm a creature of habit too. If I want to park, I want to park right there, and sometimes walk does me some good.
Yeah. This past Tuesday, you approved a consulting agreement with a company. I was going to look on their webpage to kind of read more about them, but I haven't done it yet. But it's a company that basically helps a city raise private support, in this case for recreational improvements, the master plan at Hannibal Park, in the way of naming rights, sponsorships, things like that. Talk a little bit about that. This is a new area for you, although a lot of other entities are doing this. Sponsorships on floors, on buildings. Look at Pinnacle Bank Arena. There's an example right there. Do you think this is going to be successful? Do you hope it will pan out as you would design it to, I guess?
Yeah, I think we've got some good opportunities there, and I think the thing that we contemplated and took a look at is, we kind of started down that road with Kiwanis Field at Hannibal Park. To try to do that ourselves is probably a little more than we can bite off, but my goodness gracious, whether it's good or bad, I'm not sure. When you look at the whole event centers and you look at sporting events and if you listen to the Husker game, there's a sponsor for the replay, there's a sponsor for the touchdown, there's a sponsor for the field goal. When they have a break, there's always going to be an advertising person there, and then there's a lot of other marketing opportunities. This company came to us, and we really feel like they researched us because, they're going to put in the efforts. They get they get part of the donation, but they don't have any. That we don't have any bills. So in other words, if they bring $100,000, we're going to get $70,000 of that, and they get $30,000 of that, and that will help us really try to, fast forward that master plan and finish Hannibal Park. And Hannibal Park is busy. Let's call Scott Street ballparks are busy. Hannibal Park is busy, and they bring a lot of people to town. And so, again, it's a way to maybe get some amenities that will really help us without major tax dollars.
Yeah. That thing about sponsorship, if you watch any sports on TV, you're starting to see professional players wear sponsor patches on there. If you watch any baseball, all teams are doing it. I mean, it's NBA's doing it, WNBA's doing it, Major League Baseball's doing it. Everybody seems like.
Well, and I think, as I think about it, a lot of that started with the golf a long time ago.
Yeah.
If you look at the golf, you can look at the towels, you can look at the hats, you can look at the shoes, you can look at the logo that's on the shirt. NASCAR's done it for years. So, I think it's worth trying. It's a year, and it is restricted to Hannibal Park at this point in time, and it allows us to see, is it worth it or not?
Yeah. And the company gets 30% of whatever they raise, and the rest goes to you.
The rest goes to us, and there are no other fees associated.
Yeah. It's kind of like the attorney commercial says, if we don't win your case, you don't owe us anything. But
yeah, kind of like that.
Somewhere around there, yeah. Back with more to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Bob Morgan. Back on Ask the Mayor today, I have about 5 minutes left to talk about some city issues. One thing, and I had hoped to get there, did not get there because I know they had an open house recently, but the new food pantry location that's been at St. John's for 50 years in Beatrice or so, and now it's in the lower level of the municipal auditorium where the fire department used to be at.
Yes.
Kind of a neat thing there.
Very neat thing. It's been remodeled. There has been a lot of donated labor and engineering and general contracting. I think Marv Goosen has really done a yeoman's job helping Terry Doyle and a few others get that project finished. It is really an asset to the community. I was surprised to hear how many visitors they have in a week and those type of things. So we're glad that we can be a partnership with the food pantry and keep that going, hopefully for another 50 years.
And I think today's one of their open days. It's Monday and Thursdays.
I think it's Mondays and Thursdays, and unfortunately in this day and age, it's important to make sure that it is open and help our fellow residents.
And just like the schools that have done the mini mart thing at the Beatrice High School and middle school now, the one overriding thing I keep hearing about, you're dealing with food costs that are a lot higher, inflation's still up there, so it's even creating more of a squeeze for some people.
It is. It really is.
They had a review of the Community Development Department, which used to be called Building Inspection long ago, but kind of a more inclusive name now. That was interesting as to what they deal with each year, and I know they handle a lot of nuisance complaints in terms of weeds and things like that, and of course any code violations that may be out there, and they do it all with 3 people in the office.
Right.
It's amazing.
And one is administrative assistant. The other 2 are out a lot. Chet's been fairly new to that position, but he's doing a good job. Nick is new. I think he's been there for a year. When you think about it, they have to do the building permits. They have to do the inspections. They have to, we have people who complain about weeds and property. You then, in the wintertime, it's snow and snow removal off of sidewalks. They're on the go all the time, and they're one of those places that they field the complaints of, nuisance properties. And so they do a great job. And I think sometimes people don't give them the credit that you do, because it's one of those things you're calling in because you're mad about the weeds of your neighbor, which is completely understandable. But on the other side of the coin, they gets old getting those phone calls every day. But they do a good job. They're in a tough spot. When you think about it, the storm came through, June of 2022, and so there's a large portion of roofs that had to be done, and so that's, a roof permit. So that really put them behind, as we work through that through 2023.
And for people that always want their neighbor's problem to be taken care of right away, you have property rights to deal with too, and you just can't go out and do something without perhaps being in danger of violating somebody's rights. So
you do. I mean, there's always going to be, some people that have some art in their yard that somebody else doesn't like, but it's their right to have the art in the yard.
Yeah, they used the penguin example, I think, with you.
They did. They said I wanted to have a bunch of pink penguins in my yard, and I don't, by the way.
You don't, yeah. I was going to make that clear. You don't have this whole set of penguins on your yard.
But, I guess I have the right to do that, but I don't think that would go over very well.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to move them out, move them in, and replace broken ones, so that wouldn't be good. Coming up this next week on September 14th, for people that maybe don't like how things are going or what communities do once in a while, here's your chance to chip in the Big Give Gage campaign. Donate to your favorite cause, your favorite nonprofit.
What did I hear? There's over 70?
I think 72 this year, if I remember
72
right.
great organizations. They're raising money. It's a one-day thing. They have a website, and unfortunately, I don't remember exactly what it is.
BigGiveGage.org, is that right?
I think it is.
I think
it's on September 14th, which is 1 week from today, and it's a great opportunity to support a lot of good projects.
Yeah, and I think they even have like a countdown clock to the day of and you can. I think you can donate ahead of time. I know they always get some kind of advance donations, but the goal is when the 24 hours starts, that's when the big push comes along.
That is correct.
Yeah. So, and I think they have a nice little event at the Vintage Venue. I believe
that is correct.
Downtown around the noon hour, and I know the organizations themselves kind of help out with it because they're benefiting obviously from the drive. But a lot of people there too that give of their time in addition to their original jobs that they have. And the thing that I thought was most interesting too is there's no administrative fee. They don't keep any of the percentage of the money.
All volunteerism, and it represents the entire Gage County.
Yeah. So get out your checkbook or your cash or whatever, log on or
large or small. They'll be glad for any donation that you have.
It all totals up for those organizations. Right. Well, good luck to the Chiefs tonight there.
Well, thank you.
Hope you come up with a victory, even though I'm a Broncos fan. I don't want to wish any ill will on you or anything. So.
Until they play each other. I get it.
Then we might not be talking for a day there. That's Bob Morgan, Mayor of Beatrice.